insulin resistance. If we improve it, we have more chances of getting into a healthier weight. There's a lot of confusion around the insulin and feeling low blood sugars, busy, feeling shaky, dizziness, and the high blood sugars. I wanted to try to clear this confusion and explain better what is insulin resistance and why do we even care about all those things. Insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas, which is located near the stomach. The insulin is responsible to keep the sugar under control so that people don't get diabetes. Typically, what happens when a teenager has a dessert that has a lot of sugar, if it was not for the insulin and the teenager ate that sugar, if there was no insulin, the blood sugar would be like 300 blood sugar. Why doesn't this happen? That doesn't happen because when you eat the dessert or when you eat anything that has a high carbohydrates, like if you eat bread or pasta or pizza, it's like similar, then you get a higher increase in insulin, and this high increase in insulin helps bring the sugar down so you don't have diabetes. Your pancreas is working fine. Your pancreas is producing the insulin that you need and keeps your sugar down. That's a normal response. Now, what happens if your body goes into this higher and higher insulin production all the time? Let's say that you have high carbohydrates all the time, and that leads to you having increased weight gain. That is when your body develops what we call insulin resistance. What that means is that imagine your pancreas working and working and working and working, producing all this insulin. Eventually, your pancreas is going to get tired and it's going to tell your body, I am done producing so much insulin. I cannot do this anymore. And that's when you can get into trouble by developing diabetes type 2. That's when your insulin is produced, your body is producing insulin is not enough to sustain the requirements of your body to keep the sugar under control. Obviously, that doesn't happen from one day to the other because our bodies, especially teenage bodies, are very healthy and they're very young. The pancreas has a lot of reserves. However, unfortunately, we now see cases of type 2 diabetes even in teenagers. And that happens because of the excess weight gain that we have seen in the recent years in children that are as young as 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age. So by the time a teenager reaches the age of 16, they may have 10 years of high insulin resistance, and they may get into diabetes, which means they may have to get medications that in the beginning may be pills. Later on, they may require insulin, which is injection, etc. The other thing I want to say is that this is an effect of having too much unhealthy weight. And that is because when there is a lot of body fat around the muscles, the body fat to get the energy that they need, right? To sustain your body functions. So if there is muscle fat around the fat or overall in your body, that prevents their insulin action. So let's say that somebody who does not have so much fat eats one cupcake. Let's say this teenager that has a normal BMI has a cupcake, and then there's another teenager that has an unhealthy, very high BMI above the 95th percentile, and that second teenager also eats the same cupcake. Again, if you don't know what BMI is, I invite you to go and listen to episode 1 of this podcast. The amount of insulin that is secreted to control the sugar from this one single cupcake may be this much from the boy that has normal body mass index, but it can be double the amount in the body that in the boy that has unhealthy BMI and is overweight. And that happens because the boy that has unhealthy BMI, the boy that has extra fat in their body, requires more insulin to make sure that the sugar drops and the sugar gets into the normal levels. And that's why we keep on saying that having a healthier body mass index, having a healthier weight for your height, decreases the risk to develop eventually type 2 diabetes later in life, because your body does not have to produce so much insulin throughout your teenage years and later on. And therefore, you have a healthier pancreas and a healthier body and less risk to get type 2 diabetes. I also want to mention another effect of the high spikes insulin that has to do with the higher cravings that we see in teenagers. So higher levels of insulin can lead to drops of sugar. So when you eat this cupcake, the sugar gets up, the insulin gets up, the sugar is brought down, and then this big fluctuation of your sugar up and down, that can create the cravings, that can create this feeling of hunger. And that's why, if you have noticed, if you have a snack or a meal that does not have any protein or does not have healthy fats, you see these cravings, like you want to have more chocolate, you want to have more pizza, you want to have more bread, because your body is going into this vicious cycle that it's producing more insulin, is producing bigger fluctuations in the sugar, and that fluctuation creates the cravings. Things that teenagers can do to improve insulin resistance are what I have discussed before about lifestyle modifications, and I will be talking more in future episodes about how to help insulin resistance that occurs during puberty. And finally, another thing that I would like to point out is that insulin resistance is expected in teenagers, even if they have normal body weight. There is an element of insulin resistance that happens in teenagers just because they have higher levels of growth hormone and just because they have high levels of their puberty hormones. The fact that the growth hormone is high, that creates insulin resistance, even if you have normal weight. That tells you that there are two different reasons on a teenager that is growing to have insulin resistance if they're also overweight. So if they're also overweight and they have extra weight, they can have higher insulin resistance because of that. Then they're growing. There is the growth hormone on top of that. That's another reason why they can have insulin resistance. And if they're not sleeping well, that is another reason why they can have, again, even more insulin resistance, because lack of sleep leads to insulin resistance. If they are eating more carbohydrates, more grains without enough protein and fat, that leads to more insulin resistance. And again, insulin by itself is a hormone that is absolutely necessary. And if you don't have enough insulin, or if your insulin is not acting well, you have insulin resistance, that's when you can get in trouble. And that's when you develop diabetes. So if you have completely insulin deficiency, your body cannot produce any insulin. Now, I want to close this episode with a positive note. And I want to say that insulin resistance is a state that is completely reversible. Insulin resistance can go back to normal insulin levels when teenagers learn how to have healthier habits, follow a healthier lifestyle, and they can balance their insulin with those natural changes that they can do the actual healthier habits. But I will be talking more about this in future. I've already talked on previous episodes. My take-home message for you today is take care of your pancreas. Make sure that you do anything that you can to improve your insulin resistance. I mentioned a few ways, and let me know what you think would be one way that you want to follow, and just make it a goal. And again, you don't have to make all of it at the same time, but even if it is like something simple that I will be walking for 15 minutes every day after I have a dinner, after I have lunch. That's a small change that can improve your insulin resistance, that can improve your prediabetes. Or if you say that I will add some protein when I'm eating something that has carbohydrates, like instead of having full plate of pasta, I'm going to have half plate of pasta plus half plate of grains, or I will add grains with chicken to add some protein. Like little changes like that. Just choose one of those changes and make your pancreas healthy again. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, you can go to lifestyle14s.com and sign up for the free resources.